We're back live from the Fantasy Sports Trade Association. Nando DeFino and myself, and we got a very special guest on the way here. Nando, who do we got next?
Will Carroll from FanDuel's in the house.
How you doing, brother?
What's that? We got to do that again. That was very bad.
Much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on TV. You got to make sure.
Yeah,
it
whatever.
All right, take two. We'll fix that in post, right?
Yeah. All good. Will, what's happening, man? You having fun?
Everything. Yeah, I am. You know, this is growing so much. We just had the Ipsos survey come out saying 57 million people out there.
We did the over on 55.
So you got the over.
That's insane.
It is. The growth we've had, what was it, 40?
It was 41.
41 million, yeah.
It's like a 25% growth.
Yeah, and you
Quick
know,
math.
it's one of the most exciting places to be. You know, for so many years, fantasy was fun but stagnant. You know, we all played in our fantasy baseball league. I actually have a baseball league that I've been in since we found a Dan Okrent book in the high school library. I don't know how it got there. But been playing that league since we had to do our stats from the Tuesday and Wednesday USA Todays on graph paper. And I've been in that league for 31 years.
Wow.
It's so from that to this in the middle of Times Square with hundreds of people in the fantasy industry. It wasn't too long ago we said industry kind of with a little bit of irony, but now it really is becoming an industry.
By the way, somewhere in this timeline, Will also found time to found Baseball Prospectus with some of the best people out there.
I actually came in late, so I can't
be part of Baseball Prospectus.
Part of, it was a pretty good crew we had with Joe Sheehan and Randy Gisarelli, who've gone on to great things, and Nate Silver, who apparently took over the world and decided the elections.
Christina Carl's at ESPN.
Christina Carl's at ESPN. Keith Woolner is now with the Indians. We've got so many guys inside teams. Interns of mine at Baseball Prospectus are director of baseball operations for the Rays and the Royals, director of communications for the Rays is a former intern of mine. So it was an exciting time. Same thing at the same time I was at Football Outsiders with guys like Aaron Schatz, who's now at ESPN, and Mike Tanier, who's at Bleacher Report, and Doug Farrar, who's at SI. It's an amazing collection of talent. And now, at FanDuel, we're kind of doing that again, putting together an all-star kind of dream team.
You've hired all my best friends in the industry, man.
I did. I literally
Brandon, Marianne Lee, Eric Mack, David Ganos.
Will, it's an incredible story. For the people out there, you came Baseball Perspective, you became the injury expert in fantasy sports, in sports in general, and now you're at FanDuel. How does that happen?
Well, injuries count in daily fantasy. Everybody thinks they're devalued by the daily game. The fact that you lose somebody for the season has always been such a problem. If you drafted Adrian Peterson or Ray Rice, I realize neither of them were injuries, if your quarterback got knocked out with a knee injury or a concussion, you were in for a slog. You had to go to the waiver wire and hope you could find the next Justin Forsett. It's tough, but in daily fantasy, the context of injuries is even more important. Is this guy coming back this week? And if he's coming back, is he going to come back well? Is the power going to come back for,
Will Myers?
Will Myers overall, or a guy like with Jason Worth of the Nats, coming off the shoulder surgery. What'll happen with Hamilton when he comes back to the Rangers? What's going to happen to the Rangers when they get all that pitching coming back? They've got Matt Harrison, a guy who had an operation, a spinal fusion. No pitcher has ever come back from having a lumbar fusion, and he's doing great, but they don't have room for him. There's actually talk they might have to release him to let him go somewhere else and actually pitch.
Is that something, and just to go off on this Harrison thing, is that something that you can re-injure, or is it something that just will make you change the way you pitch and change his whole...
Well, any of us that have played baseball have always heard those coaches say, hey, bend your back, come on, get through. He literally can't because he has a titanium cage that has taken one of the joints of the vertebrae and fused them together. It's the same operation that Prince Fielder had in his neck, which is the exact same operation that Peyton Manning had. We've had a couple more in football. Jermichael Finley, it essentially ended his career. But yeah, it's the fact that nobody has. Nobody ever wants to be first. Actually, one of the things we were talking about the other day with Danny Trevathan from the Broncos had the knee operation, and he told everybody, hey, I've got a new kneecap. Well, it turns out he actually didn't. So we had to correct that. So injuries in fantasy are huge. They're massive. It's one of the things. It's why you win or lose. It's whether you pick your players and whether you can keep them on the field. I realize as fantasy players we don't have that control, but we want to have the information. So I've been lucky enough to be the team doctor for fantasy players all over the world.
Under the knife, FanDuel.com/insider, right?
Yep.
You sound like you go there every day. That was very good.
I do,
right?
man. Well, I know.
Notes.
You know why? Because Under the Knife, I think, is one of the best fantasy resources out there. This is information that you, Stefania Bell, and really that's it, do injuries. It can speak really smartly on something that affects everyone playing fantasy.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
more people should be reading Under the Knife.
I completely agree. But it's funny. The same problem that we've always had is word of mouth. People find the column and they're like, "This is great. I'm not telling any of my friends. It's an advantage." So yeah,
It's crazy because Will actually made me sound really intelligent, which is hard to do, with Devin Mesoraco.
Yeah.
And people would always ask me, when Devin Mesoraco will be back? I said, well, I don't think so. He can keep pinch hitting. He can play the outfield every once in a while.
Can't squat.
But he's not going to be a catcher. And people were like amazed. And it was because Will on our show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio pointed that out to us.
Yeah. And it's that kind of information, putting it into context, figuring out. I had a lot of people, I remember you asking, is this the time to drop him? Absolutely. There's unless you're in one of those really deep leagues where you have a left-handed pinch hitter or something.
Well, enough about this injury crap.
Yeah.
Let's talk about FanDuel.
Yes.
We've not been shy about telling you how much we love the happy hour contest. It is.
We need to rename those the Nando DeFino.
Oh, come on, man!
Happy hour contest.
Well, they're fun. I mean, look, everyone goes away a winner in a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them you throw in cool prizes just for the heck of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're doing more and more is experiential prizes. I don't know if you guys have been by the booth. We've got video up from one of the greatest contests we've ever had, and I'm really excited we're going to do more of these. We had a gentleman who won the chance to be the Dallas Mavericks GM for the day. And this isn't a light thing. He actually got to sign the contract. They signed Amari Stoudemire that day.
That's awesome.
And Donnie Nelson handed him the pin. So he got to shoot around with the team. He was up there with Donnie watching as the team was practicing. And what was great is the guy wasn't shy either. He was like, "Oh, I don't know about this Dirk. He looks a little rough. Is he too old now?" Got to go around, got to come out of the tunnel with the team. These are the kind of things. These are bucket list kind of things.
I totally agree with you. I've had lucky enough in my life. I actually won about 5 years ago a fantasy football contest where I got to spend the weekend in Las Vegas with The Bachelor.
Right.
That was so I went to a nightclub at the Mirage, I think it was, and we were in there, and all these people are coming up to us, and it was
hey, it's Tony Cicada.
Right. No, yeah. And the guy was the nicest guy in the world. But these trips and these events, I think people talk about the money, and the money's great, and I'm not going to try to downplay it. But these
$1 million is nice.
Right. These trips are amazing in these contests that we have together now.
Exactly. I'm really excited about those. It's those experiential contests. We've also got these regional contests where we're trying to bring it down. I think the one thing that the daily fantasy lacks at this point that the season long has is that there's a social aspect to season long. Like I was saying, I've been in a baseball league for 30 years. I've been in leagues with friends, and we get together and we have that. We don't quite have that yet in the daily game, but it's going to be a whole lot easier for the daily game to figure out the social aspect than it is for the season long to figure out how to make it as exciting and rewarding as the daily game. So I think that's going to be the next step as we get these contests closer to people, first off. Imagine if you had a FanDuel bar where you could go to. I know there was a deal announced yesterday with Latitude. If there's a daily fantasy bar,
Latitude, New York,
Latitude 30,
and
across the country.
Here in New York, we've been doing a thing with Foleys, my favorite bar in the world.
Oh God, the hottest bar in the world, man.
Exactly. So we go in.
It's
there.
It's like under these lights every time.
I know,
but such nice people.
Exactly. So imagine going to your local bar and there's a FanDuel contest, and you can play against all the other people. And at the end of we all go to the bar on Sunday.
That we do. Those of us who aren't working well.
Yeah. You're in there, and at the end of the day, you go home with a check.
Will, scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. Foleys urinals.
Oh, they're 12.
Oh, I feel like I'm in a castle.
I know.
They're just these long, floor-to-ceiling urinals.
I know. I tell everybody, you've got to see these things. The Empire State Building's across the street, but those urinals, those are amazing.
They are something else. The only other place I've seen are McSorley's.
The only urinals that I remember are the ones that have the targets. Like you're a Red Sox fan, you always go into a Boston bar. Yeah. They have the Yankees targets in the urinals. Those are the ones that stick out to me.
Of course. we gotta hit a break. This is the live coverage, why not, of the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Conference here in New York City. Will Carroll from FanDuel, The man
so
duel,
much.
right? Yeah. At Injury Expert on Twitter. Give him a follow. It's good stuff. We'll be right back with more coverage of the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Summer Conference here in New York City.